Hi, I'm Bill Holcomb and thanks for joining me in this Walking in the Rain watercolor painting tutorial. Paint along with me by downloading my free sketch in the description below. For today's video, all you need is watercolor paper. I will be using Arches Rough 300 pound. Then you need 5 brushes, a mop brush, a number 10, a number 4, a number 2, and finally a flat brush half size. The paints used will be Windsor Blue, Windsor Yellow, Scarlet Lake, Alizarin Crimson, and Light Red. First of all, I'm mixing up the various paints. Some yellow with Scarlet Lake. Then I'll do yellow and more Scarlet Lake, a deeper hue. Then Alizarin Crimson with some yellow. These colours are going to help us with the autumn leaves colours. Then some Windsor Blue for the sky section. Then I start with a wash of clear water over the whole painting. And of course you can just mop up the edges to avoid creep back, either with a dry brush or a bit of tissue. Then we just want a little bit of the blue in the sky area, coming down a little bit in the middle, using a mop size brush for this stage of the painting. Then a little bit of that yellow for a little bit of brightness, which will shine through later on when the darker colours of the trees have been painted in and their leaves. You can mix that up a little bit. You're not aiming for massive definition on the trees areas. Just start dropping in some of those autumn colours, and that will all fuse in together, which is fine because this is first underpainting effectively. Continue with that, just doing as much variation as possible, leaving that little blue section in the middle. So I've gone to the varied colours for the autumn leaves. But later on there will be much more definition. Using something like a number 10 brush for dropping in these fused autumn colours. Always remember that these colours will dry much lighter, and you can mop the edges where the tape is, and you can use a hairdryer to speed up the process. And you can drop in some of that autumn colour on the path, just coming up to where the couple are. Then for the grass area at the base of the trees, drop in some of the green, Windsor Yellow and the Windsor Blue. Just varied, no detail at this stage, all underpainting work. You can come up a little bit. I'm using a flat brush at this stage, something like a half or a quarter, and because I can get more accuracy. Please also remember, if you're enjoying this tutorial, to smash the like button. It really helps the channel, so please do that. Certainly at the bottom section of the painting, dropping in some more blue so that it's dark in the area closest to us. Now I'm mixing up some even darker versions of the autumn leaves colours. You can use a little bit of light red here, or Venetian red, Indian red, whichever you have. Then your blue, some of the Windsor blue is good. So do a couple of versions of that, one much darker than the other. And we're going to use these. You can see what I've mixed up by this test card. We're going to use these to paint in the trees. You can drop down here to something like a number 4 brush, or for these very silhouette-y thin trunks in the background, you could drop down even more if you want to a number 2 or whatever you have available. So you continue that, you drop all those in as distant trees, just enough to tell a story, no detail on those. And always remember, you start at the bottom of those trees and work your way up. They're thicker at the bottom, get a little bit thinner as you go up. And you can play around with this because you're just making up any shapes that you wish. As often is the case, dry that with a hairdryer to speed up the process. And now dropping in the trunks and branches, limbs of the principal trees that are more to the foreground and the ones that will stand out. As that first wash is wet, you can drop in the darker wash, bearing in mind that the light is coming from the center, so the areas on the left on this occasion will be darker, and then it will be the opposite on the right hand side of the painting. Just drop those in willy-nilly, no real definition and detail, because it's going to be full of autumn leaves. I've left little gaps in the trunks here and there and the various limbs and branches because we're filling that up with autumn leaves. So I've gone to something like a number 10 or 12 brush here, pointed brush, and dropping in some fairly light colour of autumn leaves. As that dries, we'll drop in darker versions and more vibrant versions. Using the side brush technique is often very good for when doing trees. As you can see the way I hold the brush, I'm using something like a number 4 at this stage. And whilst it's still wet, I've been dropping in some darker versions and a bit of variation, using a little bit of the yellowy colour here, coloration, because those leaves will be extremely varied in the colours. Little bit of definition on the trunks of the trees, show bark, shapes of the bark, and whilst it's still wet, dropping in some more definition of limbs here and there. So it's all fused in together, and some of the limbs creep across towards the centre of the painting. I am, of course, keeping the paper taped down and in one position so that it's easier to show the video for you. But at home, of course, from time to time, you might want to twist the paper around, as long as you're not in a wet in wet situation. Then you'll have to keep it on the board at that slight angle, sloping down. A little bit of a green can be your Windsor yellow and Windsor blue. And then drop in some of the trees, use that scraping technique, varied brushes. And please remember to like and subscribe. And also, if you can, comment and share, because if you'd like to drop us a comment about the video and share it with your friends, it will help us and we really appreciate it. And often when comments are made, it might be, oh, could you please consider tackling this subject or that subject and do a tutorial on that. And we've often been able to take up those suggestions and do such tutorials. So don't be afraid to make your suggestions. Okay, so a little bit of variation going on here in terms of the autumn bushes, leaves areas, all those different colours going on. So a good variation. But as you can see, we've kept that middle area as light as possible, and that will show up the figures very well because it will be dark against light. Do remember that if you lay down a colour and you think, oh, that's a little bit too strong at the moment, you can use a tissue to dab out a little bit of that pigment. The lady, she has a scarf that is blowing across the back of the man. That's that funny little shape that you'll see later, just to add a little bit of interest. So I'm painting around that scarf. That's called negative painting, because I'm painting around it, leaving the light area, which will be used for a different colour. And arm is going through the man's arm there. That's why you see that shape, and that will be more obvious once we paint in the colour of her clothing. Because it's raining, there will be some reflection on the path of the couple's clothing, and we'll also have towards the end a lot of the fallen leaves on the path to make it realistic and interesting. So we've got a nice red colour, the Scarlet Lake, for the lady's clothing. The coat coming in here, and she does have a handbag hanging from her arm on the right side, which will come in later. Here's a little bag hanging from her arm there, a dark colour, so that there's a good contrast. Dab with tissue as necessary. Then I'm going to darken the foreground a little bit more, just coming up to where the figures are. So a little bit of water first of all, and you can go over the side areas just slightly. Go into your blue again, working your way up from the bottom towards the figures, leaving the light area so you don't lose all that light area. And you can see there's a lot of water on the tissue, and that will have to be mopped up so that we don't get creep back. But at the moment it's okay because it's still very wet on the paper. Okay, so now that's still wet, carefully drop in your little reflections, the colours of the clothing. And you'll see I also do a little bit of a shape for the umbrella, but I will break that shape up a little bit later so it's not so defined, and it will have lots of fallen leaves on there as well, as we're starting to do now with a 10 or 12 size brush. So please remember to like, and don't forget, drop comments, and please share the videos with your friends, as we really appreciate that. Now you can use water, clear water, on a flat brush to lift a little if you wish, like I'm doing now, just to break up shape, and then a little bit more, a few more leaves can go over that area, make it broken up and realistic as possible. And here we have the finished painting. I hope you found this tutorial useful. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.